In this method of preparing your sleeve cap to set your sleeve in, I am going to put a sleeve header in as I ease the cap. So I have cut a piece of my fabric. Turn it this way, you can see it better. I've cut a piece of my fabric that is 1.5 inches tall by 12 inches long. It could be 10 to 12, but I'm going to go with the longer because I want to ease it in. And I'm going to ease this into the wrong side. This is the wrong side of my cap. And I'm going to ease it in, not all the way down to where the notches are, because this front notch is marked very low on our pattern, but I will ease it about the top half of the sleeve is where I want to ease from. So I'm going to mark, I'm going to put a pin here, and I'm going to put a pin back here. So in the medium, this top a little bit more than half of the sleeve is approximately where the back notches are on the back, but it is up about 3 inches from the front seam. And I am going to use my piece of fabric, my bias, and I am going to pin it first. I'm going to put it on a number 4 stitch length and ease it. I'm going to pull on the bias as I ease, as I sew, and it will ease the cap in. And I'll show you that next. I'm getting ready to ease my sleeve and put in a sleeve header at the same time. So this is the wrong side of my fabric up on my sleeve header, and I am starting at the notch on my sleeve, and I am at 5/8 of an inch. I have a basting stitch or gathering stitch, and I'm going to get started. Now I'm going to gently pull on the bias strip as I stitch, making sure I'm staying at 5/8 of an inch. As you can see, the bias strip gets narrower, but I'm still stitching at 5/8 of an inch as I stitch around my sleeve cap. And I'm going to stitch, here's my end point right here, to my other notch. So my bias strip is a little longer than I need it to be, but I don't want to go past my other notch. And there I am. I'll stop. So take it out. Let's move the camera a little bit. And look what it does. It eased my cap. And I'll move the camera so that you can see this better, but this worked actually really well. Here's my finished sleeve header and easing. The 12 inches worked really great for the size medium in this particular pattern. And again, I started easing here, went up around, this is the front, up around, and actually did come back to almost the notches in the back. If I turn it around, look at that. That's a nice rounded cap on my sleeve already. So when I go to sew this in, I'm now going to pin it in the other side of my jacket, and I will stitch this in because it's already been eased, which is really great. So one of the things that you want to see when your sleeve has been eased in, your sleeve cap, again, notice it's roughly, right? It's roughly out here at the cut edge, but it's smooth because I've just pulled the weave together ever so slightly. It's smooth at the stitching line, and that is the key. So whether you're using what may be considered the traditional method, right, using the 2 rows of basting, stitching, and pulling it up, easing your sleeve in, or using this method where I used a piece of bias of self fabric, I stretched the bias as I stitched it. Either way, what we're doing is it makes the cut edge roughly because that's a longer distance, but we should just be pulled up and eased, meaning we've slightly pulled the fabric together at the stitch line. And that's the most important part. So let me pin this in, and then I'll stitch it and show you. I think the trickiest thing about stitching in the sleeve using the method of using the header to ease your sleeve is you want to make sure that when you stitch this sleeve in, I've pinned it in, but I'm going to put some extra pins in. And what I'm doing is I'm pinning right on the easing stitch that I put in before. The part that might be slightly tricky about this part is you need to make sure in the area where it's eased, because you can see that roughly edge, right? You see and that's normal. That's okay. It's going to be roughly at the edge, but we want to make sure that it's nice and flat where the actual easing took place. And now I can go in, and we're not stretching under the arm. So I'm going to go stitch this now at 5/8 of an inch. I will stitch the underarm a second time at 1/4 inch, trim it down, and I will show you this sleeve when it's finished. All right, so here is my finished sleeve with using the bias to ease and create a header at the same time. Just let me turn this a little bit so you can see. It actually worked pretty well. I'm very pleased. There's some places where it looks like there's a little bit, it's not quite a pucker, but I can steam those out. I can press this over a ham and steam those out. And on the inside, you'll see, I have not stitched my second time under my arm yet, but now you can see that I've stitched. I have a sleeve head in already, called sleeve head, sleeve header. It's the same thing, different terminology. And again, all the seam allowance is going to be pressed towards the armhole, right? We want to press everything this way. I'm not going to trim this down at the top. I'm only going to trim down the bottom part once I stitch it a second time. Then I'll put it on the mannequin, and you can look at both of the sleeves and see how you feel about them.